What's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is another Chance Encounter. Hey, what's up? I'm Dan Fredenberg. I'm a commercial real estate guy. I'm from the internet. Power line today is kind of close. What's up again? This is Dan Fredenberg. I'm joined today with my friend Daryl Brooks. How you doing today, Daryl?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. And if you haven't seen one of these chance encounters before, what we do is I go through the 5 different motivations I've found that are distinct for commercial real estate investors, and I say, hey, which one's you? And then I pull out the Dan Does Deal die, and that has the 6 different roles in a commercial deal, and I say, which one's you? With Daryl, I already know the answers, so that should make it simple. But Daryl, why don't you introduce yourself for the audience?
Yeah, my name's Daryl Brooks. I have a business partner, Kevin Hackbart. I'm based out of the Detroit, Michigan market, and Kevin is based out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We pretty much operate nationwide and have a very strong background in construction. I have over 100 million square foot of building and renovation under me. And my partner, Kevin, he did a lot of student housing and operated in 37 different states. So we've been in business for 2 years. Currently, we own 300 doors. We've got another 500 and something under contract, and we're still looking.
Exactly. That's why Daryl and I got along so well. It's because he's a mover and a shaker. That's the best kind. But I got the monitor behind me with this on here, but it's hard to see, so I'll just pop it up on here. So the motivation piece, the motivation section, why do you want part of an apartment complex is what I entitled it, and the whole idea is that beginners, they know their motivation, but they don't necessarily know their roles. So the first motivation for wanting part of a commercial deal is because you use your wealth for your income, for your cash flow and all that sort of stuff. And then the big concern has to be inflation, because that's what's going to stop the party. You need to be constantly making acquisitions, or else inflation will eat away from the main nest egg. That's the first reason why people want another commercial property. The second one is my one, which is I realize as a high earner in tech, I could continue, getting these salaries that are high, but there's an intermediate step of paying income tax. You pay more tax on income than any other type of cash flow. So it hits me that why not change my focus so that I'm in the commercial area, and then I'm getting rewarded for my effort and time in the form of wealth instead of income. The next one is the most common reason, which is people are looking to fast track their retirement. And there are a couple things that are implied when you say fast tracking the retirement. You have to have already started towards your retirement for that to really count. So if you're in your early 20s, I'm not really going to buy it. But it may be more of the first one of time for wealth. But the other thing that's more important about saying that fast tracking your retirement is your motivation is because there's an end in sight. There's a spot where you're going to be like, okay, well, enough is enough. Maybe I'm going to move somewhere like the Philippines where it's inexpensive and continue out my years. But that's in stark contrast to the next group. They're so ambitious, they want to buy their entire hometown. So these are the guys who are going to be hustling until they drop. And that's pretty handy to have in a group of GPs, because somebody's got to keep hustling even when everybody else is tired or when life happens. The last of the 5 motivations, though, is in pretty stark contrast to that last one. A lot of people have a section of society. They recognize that generating wealth is the best vehicle to make a huge impact on society. So they decide commercial properties are a great way to give back. And it may not just be a sector of society. It might be animals or something like that. But that's the last reason is because they want to use their wealth to help somebody or a group of people. So out of those 5 motivations, what most closely describes your situation, Daryl, or what combination?
Well, I'd have to say, if you probably talk with the guys that we partner with, I'm the mover and shaker. So that's just how I'm wired. I'm always on the go. My real deep desire, and maybe I miss where that would fit in there, but it's more about creating a legacy for my family, my children, my grandchildren, that financial freedom that's going to provide them opportunities if they so choose to exercise that. If they want to be a ballerina dancer, then go be a ballerina dancer. But if you want to get into this and really like 10x your ability to earn money in a very passive way, I'd like them to have that opportunity.
That makes lots of sense. That makes lots of sense. And, your own family, they're still a sector of society. So I guess that's probably, a mixture between that and the nonstop hustling thing. But let's go through
Yep.
the Dan Does Deal die, and I'll do it in the way
All
for
right.
you and the audience, the simplest way to understand, which is to start with what a repositioner is. A repositioner looks at a lot of different deals, but one of the important parts is they have to do the underwriting, which means they're doing the math. They're looking at the rent rolls and all that kind of stuff and saying, hey, does this stuff really make sense? And what they're really trying to do and why they're looking at so many properties is they're figuring out which ones have upside. And the two main ways you get upside are efficient operations. You make sure those Benjamins aren't going down the toilet like in this picture. But, operations are more than just unclogging toilets and doing maintenance. It's also doing bookkeeping. It's also doing marketing to make sure that your vacancy rate is low. And that's one of the bigger ones that I contribute to a co-GP situation. The other one is streamlining the acquisitions flow. But one of the issues you have right now is, as a repositioner, efficient operations won't really cut it more often than not with the prices of buildings these days. So very often they end up getting a contractor team, someone to make the place nicer so you can charge more in rent. That's an easy peasy way to get your upside as a repositioner. But if you're a repositioner like me, who's remote based, you're going to need boots on the ground. You're going to need a local. You're going to need somebody who can be there in an hour, because that's not going to be me. So most people, when they think of picking up an apartment complex team, this is more or less what they think of, but there's still the financiers. Okay, the financier could be a bank, and if you are a financier, you might just be a capital raiser. But if the repositioner goes to the financier and says, hey, I want to buy this property and it's worth tens of millions of dollars, so I need to borrow tens of millions of dollars, what the financier is going to ask is like, okay, well, that's all well and good with the property, but who's your sponsor? Who's the KP? Who's the person who already owns a similar asset? Because you're not going to get a loan unless somebody in the fold already owns a similar asset. So the other thing that's necessary is you have to have a balance sheet equal to the amount of the loan or greater. But those are the 6 different roles. So Daryl, can you please describe what your core competency is from this die?
Well, yeah, we've got a few of them actually, and the repositioner, we do that, and like on our team, Kevin does a lot of the underwriting, the deal structuring, negotiations, things like that with different sellers or brokers or wholesalers, wherever the deal is coming from. And he also works very closely with myself in, developing the construction budget or the repositioning budget for the property to figure out, what makes sense, how much is enough, but how much is not too much, overdoing it. And then I oversee a lot of the different, trades and the actual physical repositioning of the property there itself. And we're just starting to enter into that space where we can be KPs now, on some smaller deals and that. There's a lot to that, but you're right. The balance sheet, and the bigger thing that stops a lot of people is having the liquidity after closing to be qualified as a KP. Some people don't understand. You have to have, 10% of that amount in liquid, funds, whether it be stocks, cash, whatever, after closing, in order to be a sponsor, a KP on that deal. Property management, we don't do any of that. We third party that stuff out. We don't want to collect rents, or like you said, I don't want to be out there plunging toilets and all that stuff. But I think that covers pretty much most of what you had on your dice there, I think. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it definitely did. And that repositioner piece, you were just showing that like there's a lot more to it. So like having that contractor background, a lot of these repositioners, they understand it from, a numbers on a spreadsheet perspective, but they're not going to necessarily be able to eyeball it and say, hey, this building looks like there's something wrong with the foundation, or, I see some bits and pieces that aren't square. But about properties. What is, I usually end up asking what your buy box is, in other words, your ideal property in terms of geographic areas and unit count. So what exactly is the type of property where you'd have a much easier time saying yes to it, Daryl?
Well, there's a lot of competition in the southeast of the United States right now. The Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Texas, all that, those southern states like that. We love the Midwest. We really love the Midwest. We think there's a lot of great deals out there, and not the real big cities like the Chicago's, Detroit's, Indy's actually one of the few that's really, it's smoking. But we like those secondary markets, kind of within a half hour, 45 minutes of that. We're moving up kind of like in units. We'll look at stuff down as low as 30 units, but we prefer to be somewhere between that 50 and 150. And now we're starting to look too at a little bit more like really bigger properties, like 400 and 500 unit portfolios that are a little bit more stabilized, maybe a B class. Still needs some, sprucing up. Maybe it hasn't been touched in 10, 15, 20 years, but it's in a great area. It's somewhat stabilized, and through doing some renovations and, more efficiencies in property management, bringing, like the team that we have in on these deals that's very proficient at doing the property management, increasing the rents, looking at different fees that they can charge if there aren't fees being charged in that. So that's kind of our buy box right there is, 50 to 150 anywhere in the Midwest, within reason. You get a lot of farming towns out there, so it gets pretty sparse in some areas, but got to be about 30 minutes within a major city. That's all. So.
Mhm. Beautiful. And I found in commercial real estate, it's people are absolutely amazingly helpful with their information, their contacts, and all that kind of stuff. And I think part of it is because it's a team sport. We all need help, and so we also
Yep.
see the importance of helping each other. But one thing before I ask you who you can help more than anybody else is I got to make sure that you don't break any SEC restrictions. And for those of you in the audience who don't know what this is all about, you can't entice investors unless you have a 506C offering. 506B, it's a big fat no-no. So without enticing investors, unless you have a 506C, then you can just go ahead. Who can you describe the person in real estate where you think you're better suited to help them than anybody else? In other words, the best person to reach out to you?
Yeah, it's actually a couple groups. So, we've got a lot of people that we meet along the way through different, podcasts, different webinars, different events and stuff. They're new folks that are trying to get started in this industry, and they're nervous, they're scared, they're looking at the numbers, and the numbers are really big, and they're nervous about making a mistake. And so, we're always looking to partner with people like that. If they've got a deal or they think they have a deal, we're always willing to talk to people about that. The other people are, people that have, liquid assets that they're looking to deploy into something. The rage right now, all these coins and all this cryptocurrency and stuff like that, there's a lot of people out there that are just like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't, whatever. And, the stock market, just keeps going up. Eventually it's going to come down, and the beautiful thing about, commercial real estate is that you have a situation there where it's a very stable, thing. Yeah, it might go, you might not make a lot of money for a period of time, when maybe the economy takes a hit, but people still have to have a place to live. So, anyone that's looking to try to deploy stuff, if they got capital that they're wanting to get into a deal, stuff like that, we're always looking for folks like that. Pretty much on the other side there, if there's people that are in the trades, we're constantly looking for people in the trades. There's a massive labor shortage nationwide right now. And so the properties that we tend to buy tend to be on the ugly side, as I say. They we like the ugly ones. They don't scare us. A lot of people would walk in on the stuff that we do and they'd be like, "Oh my God, you're nuts," But because of our background, it doesn't scare us, and we know how to turn them around.
Great. So like that's what I see personally is like repositioners in particular. I think they could benefit hugely from having you on their team, just because you're not sitting there, dealing in hypotheticals. You're dealing in experience on all of these different things. So I really love
Yeah.
that one. But as far as reaching out to you, we met through Tim Brotz's mastermind, and I know that you're active on LinkedIn and Facebook and all that kind of fun stuff. But what's the best way to reach out to you? Is it through your website or is it through one of those platforms?
Probably, just email and, our phone numbers, we don't hide anything. We don't have like burner phones or whatever, the phone numbers that are listed in our LinkedIn, contact and that's my cell phone. I mean, our emails there, we always get back to people. It might not be right immediately, but we always get back to folks, and, have a conversation or whatever. So that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of us is through email. I mean, there's, like I said, our phone numbers are out there too. It's not something, if you want to give us a shout, we might not answer right away, but we'll get back to you if you leave us a message. So
Awesome, awesome. And for those of you in the audience who know Daryl, but you don't know me, my background is in e-commerce technology. In other words, we used to email 5 million emails a month for about 6 years, and I was in charge of making sure that that stuff didn't fall apart. But the bigger one was the funnels themselves. So that's lead capture, lead generation, and then the online sales funnels itself and any automations that have to do with that. But I do have a little favor to ask you in the camera in the audience there, which is under my hand somewhere over here. You'll see a red button that makes me sad. It says subscribe, and it doesn't make me sad if you click it and it turns gray, because that means YouTube pays for these videos instead of me, which is pretty much my favorite thing. So pretty please, with sugar on top, it doesn't cost you anything. Please subscribe, and all it means is that my videos might show up in your list of suggestions. Keyword is might. There's no guarantee that I'll even appear if you do subscribe, but it does mean that YouTube will start paying me those beautiful, beautiful Google dollars, and so please do that. But Daryl, this has been fantastic catching up with you again. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Thanks again, and thanks for having us on, and keep killing it, man.